Hello, good evening, and welcome to Monkeys with Fire. How is everybody tonight? Hope you're all well. Hope you're ready for another venture out into the final frontier. We are continuing a week of coverage of Star Trek Adventures from Modiphius Entertainment, and tonight we are going to be taking a look at the Delta Quadrant Sourcebook. Yes, this is the source book to give you all the facts and stories regarding the epic journey of the USS Voyager. Very excited about this. Voyager was one of my favourite TV shows of the time. And of course, I just loved the starship. It's probably one of the best looking ships, isn't it? So I'm excited to delve into this source book to find out some of the things that I probably wasn't aware of at the time. Of course, our thanks to Modiphius Entertainment for providing a PDF copy of the book for tonight's show. Before we get started, there are details in the video in regards to a giveaway that we are running on the channel. It's your chance to win a copy of the Star Trek Adventures 2nd edition core rulebook as a PDF. There is a link, click on that and enter the giveaway. The winner will be announced via email on Monday next week. Okay, let's jump on in then. Okay, so here we go. This is the book, and of course the front cover there has the iconic Voyager battling with a Borg cube. That is the primary element of this source book. Whether you are a fan of the Voyager TV series or not, if you are playing Star Trek, the best way to think of the Delta Quadrant Sourcebook is in fact a Borg sourcebook. And let's be honest, most players possibly want to encounter the Borg at some point during their adventures. And this book is going to give you all the rules and some of the background and be able to expand upon the Borg Collective. Let's set ourselves up to get a little bit more into the Star Trek theme. There we go. That feels much better to me. Okay, so let's jump on in then. Straight away, within the inside cover of the front and back of the book, we have this wonderful map that details the path of the Voyager. This effectively is, I think it's the 7 seasons worth of travel that Voyager did as it attempted to try and get back home. So I think it was over 70,000 light years they had to travel. And this is great because it highlights all of the major encounters, which that essentially is all of the TV episodes. It doesn't specifically mention the actual episode name, but it does mention the encounter, so you can pretty much work out what was happening on each of these. And I think this is a great addition to the book. Having that link to the TV show, I think, is really important. And I very much appreciate it. So we get a little bit of a tease on the first couple of seasons from Voyager. And as I say, the remainder is within the back section of the book. Okay, as we go on in, we have our contents. We have an introduction. We then have an introduction to the Delta Quadrant. We have the species of the Delta Quadrant, starships of the Delta Quadrant, and then encounters and adversaries. So if you joined me on last night's show when we were taking a look at the Gamma Quadrant Sourcebook that detailed primarily the Deep Space Nine series and of course the Dominion and the Dominion War, then this book follows exactly the same kind of format, and I believe that the Alpha and Beta Quadrant books do as well. So you'd get accustomed to how the information is laid out. Of course, we've got to have a graphic of a Borg cube, haven't we? Again, the book follows a similar design style to the others, where it uses the Lacars system as seen in the 3 TV shows of Next Generation, Deep Space Nine and Voyager. And of course it is the white text on black page, to which Modiphius has now changed that for the 2nd edition, taking on board player feedback. But as much as it looks really cool and is very thematic to the TV show, it can be a little bit of a pain when you're trying to find an important piece of information. So they've gone to a white page with dark text instead. So we get an introduction into the Delta Quadrant, which typically is an unexplored region for the most part of the Star Trek timeline. In fact, the Voyager being flung to the Delta Quadrant is kind of an anomaly. However, this section here, Yesterday's Enterprise, which details how Gamesmasters can actually incorporate the events of the Voyager TV series into their games, specifically games that are set within other eras. So thinking primarily of the Star Trek Enterprise or Star Trek the original series era, where ships of course travel so much slower than those within the Next Generation era. And this Yesterday's Enterprise call out links to many of the episodes where the show featured humans in the Delta Quadrant that you ordinarily wouldn't have thought they'd be there, but for reasons detailed in the episode, here they are. And of course Gamesmasters can use that as a way to transport their players to the Delta Quadrant. But as I said right at the start, the flip side to this is that the book has all the details about the major power of the Delta Quadrant, which of course is the Borg Collective. Good evening, Roger. We're just starting to go through the Delta Quadrant Sourcebook for Star Trek Adventures from Modiphius Entertainment. This is the sourcebook that essentially focuses on the Star Trek Voyager TV series and the Borg. Were you a fan of Voyager? Did you watch the show? Of course, last night we were looking at the Gamma Quadrant and of course Deep Space Nine. So we've had our introduction. We then start to look at the actual Delta Quadrant. And of course, sourcebooks are fantastic for the fact of they give you all the information that answer all the questions you ever wanted to ask. The information is typically in these books, so they are really great if, of course, if you're playing the game, but of course if you're just a fan of Star Trek. I've always said this about role-playing games, that if it is a game that features a popular property, so Star Wars, Star Trek, what other ones have I got down here? Fallout, then Dune, then getting source books and role-playing games for those particular properties are great, because as a fan they have just so much information. So Rogi, you're saying you enjoyed Voyager, it was really good. Yeah. Did you have a favourite character? So what are we looking at here? We are looking at the different powers within the Delta Quadrant. And that's something that's worth pointing out. A big difference between the Gamma Quadrant and the Delta in terms of how the show was laid out. I feel that the Delta Quadrant is more going back to the Star Trek roots of exploration, even though it's a forced discovery upon this crew. But they're always encountering new people, new planets, new situations, new problems to overcome. And of course, that's really great material for your role-playing game. So we got different powers. Hakonia, the Hakonian Order, the Hierarchy, the Herosian. I remember the Herosian. And the Kazon. I think the Kazon were one of the first of the sort of the new bad guys. So Roger, you liked all of the characters, but 7 of 9 was always nice to watch. Yeah, yes. I think the casting of Star Trek Voyager, they learned a trick or two in this series. They knew how to get viewers watching. Species 8472. Oh my goodness, that was such a game changer when they were first introduced. But I think part of it, in my opinion, was because the Borg were starting to get a little tired. They were being overused, and we needed to have something bigger and badder. It kind of made the Borg seem small, didn't it? That there was something even more terrible in the universe. That's my only sort of the downside in regards to the Borg, is I feel that they got overused too much. They should have been a little bit more sparingly used, but be incredibly difficult to overcome. Which was kind of how it was initially, because you were terrified when you first saw the Borg, but eventually got to the point that anybody can take them on. They kind of lost their teeth a little bit. Talaxians. Now, Talaxians, they're the race that Neelix comes from. Did you like Neelix, Roger? I thought Neelix was a bit annoying. He was just too happy all the time. Yeah. Now, this is it. Is it the Vidians? The Vidians are they the ones that are having to replace their organs? They're quite nasty. I thought that you know, you could see how some of these races could be played in a more horror kind of style, and I think that would actually be a lot of fun. You know, if you're playing a game set within the Delta Quadrant, it's got to be really, you've got to ump the element of the great unknown, because that's how it would truly be for the crew of your starship. I guess during that Next Generation era, most crews and captains, they've kind of got used to what's out there now. It's no longer the days of Kirk and Spock where everything is a new encounter for them. And so the Delta Quadrant brings that back to the games. And so working with your players so much as describing the species that they're meeting, but not necessarily telling them, oh, it's this particular species. It means that they're having to discover this species just like the crew would be doing so. I think that'd be a lot of fun. You like the Doctor? It was a good way to use a hologram. Yes, they were very inventive with that one, weren't they? So we go on to the worlds of the Delta Quadrant. Demon Planet. Again, it gives you a little bit of information there which relates to the episode that featured the Demon Planet. That's just a little bit of a shame that they do not call out the episodes within these source books. As much as you can go online and you can find resources that will break down every episode, and you can click links through from one element, one race, and then go to its planet, and then go to find out what episodes it featured in. All of that is available online, but it would have been nice to have had some of that here, actually in the source book. Home of the 37s. Do you remember that episode, Roger? This is where over 100,000 humans were abducted. It's all about alien abductions. And this is where they got transported to. I like those kind of episodes. They were really cool. And we got, of course, you know, nice imagery in here, as we expect. We have the Ocampa, and of course the Caretaker's Array. That's where it all starts. Talax. I can't remember, there was one planet during the course of the series which, if I remember rightly, they had an old probe from Earth that eventually found its way to the Delta Quadrant. I wonder if it details it here. I don't know if I can find it. Voyager did have some really interesting stories. As much as Deep Space Nine did focus in on the war, and it's an epic war story sort of series, like I say, this goes back to a little bit of the adventuring and going back to maybe the core roots of Star Trek, the very thoughtful science fiction. And so I did enjoy those episodes. I know that sometimes Voyager gets a little bit of a hard time from the fans, that it wasn't necessarily the strongest, but like with any series, they had their really good episodes in there, and I like the ones that did lean back into the sort of the hard sci-fi. I enjoyed that. So here we go, the Borg Collective. We are the Borg. That's the phrase of nightmares if it's the first thing you hear when you establish communications. And so it goes into all of the details about the Borg Collective. Again, this goes into so much more detail than what the show necessarily covers. Of course, on the show, they are an unbeatable adversary, and that's mainly how they're used. But for a role-playing game, you need to be able to delve a little deeper. And of course, this sourcebook gives you all of that information. So again, if you're going to be playing the game, or if you're just a fan, then this is really great reading. And I guess also during the course of the time period, the Borg would have met the other major races within the Alpha Quadrant. So, you know, potentially they would have faced against Romulans and Klingons and Cardassians. So that brings an interesting element. Lots of call-outs in this particular source book. Again, details about infants and children within the collective. You do get to see that, don't you? You get to see humanoid, small sort of babies near enough that already have Borg implants. Quite chilling. Their quest for perfection. Oh, Section 31 making a report. What? That secret clandestine organisation that has name badges. You remember some of the episodes? Yeah. Well, I'm actually going through a process of re-watching all of the Star Trek TV shows. We recently did the original series movies, going on into the Next Generation, doing the Next Generation movies, and now we've just started the first season of Deep Space Nine. And they still hold up. They are still really, really good shows to watch. And the good thing about it, of course, is that Star Trek, typically, the core shows from the 60s and what we'll say the 90s, yeah, I think that's about right, isn't it? They are constantly in syndication, being repeated over and over again. There's always a channel got one of the shows on somewhere. Anytime I sort of change channels, I see one on, I always like to watch a little bit of it just to see if I can remember the major story beats. So Borg locations. Because again, we only ever see really Borg cubes or Borg spheres, but what happens when the Borg actually does take over an entire world? Oh, definitely, yes, rewatch. It is, it's definitely worthwhile. They are still really, really good. That's an interesting illustration of Borg Pyramid. Again, I love the artwork throughout these books. It's all very consistent. It's all of really high quality. Lots of the Uni complex, massive deep space structures built by the Borg at critical locations within their territory, such as the Borg transwarp conduit hubs. So as you can see, there is a lot of detail about the Borg. That's why I mean this is your Borg sourcebook. So even if it's not the Voyager journey that you're interested in, if you want to include the Borg, this is the book for you. Okay, but what other species are to be found in the Delta Quadrant? So it just says here, what? Even with 7 years worth of data gathered by the crew of the USS Voyager, the Delta Quadrant is arguably the quadrant of the galaxy with the greatest number of unknowns. That's very, very true. So, Gamemasters and Players are encouraged to use any of the dozen species presented in this chapter as unique members of their starship crew, as recurring NPCs that could help, hinder, or harm player characters in any given mission or adventure. Further, they should be used as inspiration to create entirely new species. Yes, that's the thing, isn't it? Species of both the Delta and Gamma quadrants. These are the unknowns. These are the areas that the Federation typically hasn't really branched out in. So there's so much more to be discovered. Hello, M. Oh, wow. This is a great question. How would you guys rank all the series? For me, it would be the original series, DS9, Next Generation, Voyager, and then all of the rest. Okay, yeah, we'll probably talk a little bit about that during tomorrow's show. Certainly in regard to all the rest and where they would rank. That's an interesting one. I think it depends. So are we ranking quality of episodes or series as a whole? Let's just clarify that. So, Ankari. So these can be used during the original series. Again, giving rules as regards to playing some of these species in different eras. Is that Jai? We're going to go with the Jai? So, Em, you're saying, tough question, I'd say series as a whole. Okay, well in that case then, I would say DS9. I'm going to say Next Generation, including Picard Season 3 only, because I consider that to be Next Generation Season 8. You see, it's hard because I kind of feel that the original series should be it should be the top one, but the thing is that the original series is a collection of individual episodes more than a coherent story across all seasons. Do you agree? So I suppose TOS and Voyager are closer together as far as what they do. Yeah, I think DS9's got to be the top. Next Generation, because it has some absolute amazing episodes, and then Picard Season 3 does kind of close the door on that in a satisfying way, as well as it possibly can be. Ooh, TOS and Voyager, joint place. I'd even and Enterprise. I'd even include Enterprise in here as well. I think that, you know, from my personal opinion, there's a definite line in the sand as far as Gene Roddenberry, Rick Berman era, and then everything since. And we'll leave it at that for tonight. Roger saying TOS, Enterprise, Voyager, Next Generation, DS9. Ah, okay, that's an interesting one. M, you're saying TOS is only my number one for sentimental reasons and fully agree with each episode with self-contained story. Yeah, that's the great thing about the DS9 series as a whole, is it was a massive, effectively, what, 6-season story? You know, it was, that was cool. That was really, really good. The other shows kind of were more individual, weren't they? But for you, Roger, you say that DS9 is at the bottom of the list, and you actually liked Enterprise higher than Next Generation. What was it about Enterprise that you enjoyed so much? And of course, there's no right or wrong answers here. Everyone has differing opinions, and of course, we welcome that. Oh, what have we got here? Liberated Borg. And then looking at Borg implants. Wow, you see, now you can actually play a Borg if you wanted to. You could be, what would you be? 3 of 5. If you really wanted. That'd be quite cool. Or you could be a hologram. There you go, Roger. You can play as your favourite Doctor. The Mari. Monian. I recognise it, but I can't remember the story. See, this is where it would be helpful to have that little bit of a little call out to say, hey, this particular species was in this episode. Because that's the thing, of course, with a lot of Star Trek, certainly the Voyager shows, is that we might meet this species only for that one episode. That's it. So you like Enterprise because it's original story being from the beginning. Yes, I guess it is the furthest. Well, it's the furthest back on the timeline, isn't it? As far as the starting point. I again, you know, Enterprise doesn't necessarily get as much love as it should do. I enjoyed it. It was certainly, they were going to do a season 5. They had plans for that, but unfortunately, never happened. Some of these races I don't recognise, but the Talaxians, that's Neelix, isn't it? And again, it's a bit of a shame that we don't have an image, as much as we can all remember what Neelix looks like in our darkest nightmares. It'd be nice to have included an image. Turi? Oh my goodness. Is that a Borg dog? Spock's brain kinda killed it. Isn't there an episode where Spock has his brain taken out of his head and put in a jar? Or am I just am I just making stuff up? I know that happens in a Futurama episode. Well, that's Leonard Nimoy's head's in a jar. Was it Zal's? Okay, so Chapter 4. It's always my favourite bit in these source books. It's the starships. You gotta love a good starship. So of course, it's Borg ships, isn't it? These are the things that absolutely terrify you. Like, that's a good quote. Oh, what I wouldn't give for a few Borg cubes about now. Anything for a little distraction, says Captain Catherine Janeway, as she's sipping on her coffee. So, Borg octahedron, probe ship. Oh, I see, that's beautiful artwork there. I love that. You see, this again, I don't think we ever saw an image like this. Borg cubes descending down onto a planet. I mean, we got to assume that they were capable of doing so. because we've seen the devastation wrought by them, where they have lifted off entire colonies, haven't they? Because that was the big tease in the Next Generation on the final episode of Season 1. Borg Taurus. Oh. And then detailing a bit about Borg technology and of course its auto-regeneration. Because no matter how many times you shoot, they're able to repair themselves. And of course the scale of these massive... Aren't they like a kilometre cubed? So they are absolutely immense vessels. And then we go on to non-Borg vessels, so the Delta Flyer, which is the enhanced shuttlecraft that the crew of the Voyager construct in their spare time. You know, the Voyager that has... They've got to travel 70,000 light years but have unlimited photon torpedoes. And they can go and build shuttlecraft from their resources. Janeway should have become a Federation quartermaster after this voyage, for the fact of being able to make her supplies last for 7 years for so long. She was amazing. Talaxian freighter, a Kazon raider, Erosion warship, I'm trying to find Lokirium. I'm gonna go with that. Lokirium. Photonic disruptors. Species 8472. But they had exactly. They had trouble with food, so Neelix had to cook in Janeway's galley. But they could find the resources to make themselves a brand new shuttlecraft. Yes. The photon torpedo paradox, says M. Yes, yes. I mean, you know, you look back at it now and you smile, yeah, because of course it's what the scriptwriters had needed to make happen for the show to work. But it's all good. It's all good. Vidian warships. And the VOF. VOF cloaking device. So we got plenty of new ships being added. And again, something that I know that it's covered in the Utopia Planitia Sourcebook, and that came out after this one. And of course, we looked at the Utopia Planitia Sourcebook. Gosh, it must have been a good year or so ago. This book itself is, I think it's a couple of years old now. It's just a shame, just like with the Gamma Quadrant Sourcebook, that they don't actually have a bit of a hero section on the ship that actually made the show. So there's nothing in to relate to Voyager. There's no call out, there's no enhanced chapter on Voyager as a ship, because maybe you wanted to set your game actually on board Voyager. Maybe with the Gamma Quadrant you wanted to actually be on DS9. I feel like that's something that you know, would have been cool addition to these books. As much as, you know, maybe some people want to actually have their own ship and have their own unique voyages, but maybe you are a guest on board, and, you know, and you actually play one of the episodes from the show. It's a little bit like sort of cosplay. I don't know. I would have thought that would be quite cool. So I feel that both these books miss that chapter on the hero ship. But maybe that is something that will happen in the second edition. Guest appearances, yes. Yeah. You know, because as much as... I suppose it's a little bit of fan fiction, isn't it? You know, maybe this would be a one-off game with your group that, okay, which was the series you really enjoyed? Right, let's do a one-off scenario where we're going to be ensigns and lieutenants on the ship that we really enjoyed. You know, so you can bump into Catherine Janeway. And it reminds me a little bit of, oh gosh, the anniversary episode from DS9 where they merged modern footage with old footage. Do you remember that episode? So it would be kind of, you know, how the characters were getting all a bit, you know, starstruck because, of course, they run into an old famous character. So Rogue is saying, so you would be a way for you could have friends to come in for one time, and since a friend could play all the time. Yes, exactly. And M saying, let's play as the Klingons from the Tribbles episode from TOS. Fantastic. Yes. Yes. And mentioning the Tribbles episode, you're kind of thinking along the lines of the episode I'm just referring to. So, yeah, I think that maybe there is room for some kind of source book that is hero episodes from all the shows for you to be able to be in that episode. I think that could be a lot of fun. Okay, so encounters and adversaries. So these are encounter seeds. These are basically mini descriptions of what could be worked into an actual scenario, an adventure for your players. Gives you a bit of a mission hook and gives you something to sort of build up and work from. So what have we got here? Demon doubles. Ah, yes. I remember this. This is the... Is that the Talaxians? Recently conducted deuterium mining operations on a class-wide demon planet. If I remember rightly, this is where everybody gets duplicated, don't they? Again, great artwork. So we've got a variety of different ideas for missions, and then it introduces some NPCs with which we can incorporate. So some general ones here, but we've got an Herosian technician, Herosian hunters. Oh, these were the ones that took over Voyager, didn't they? Kazons. Or was it the Kazon? I get those confused. Herosians and Kazons. One of those factions took over Voyager. See, now he makes me think, yes, he's Kazon, isn't he? Yes. So I think these were the original adversaries from Season 1. The old camper? Was it Kez? We got the elders and a disciple. And then, of course, we've got to have some kind of species 8472. Talaxians. And that's it. The Vidians, a phage carrier. The phage was... I always thought that was really gross. Again, it was quite a sort of horror-themed episode, wasn't it? As they're going in harvesting body organs. I think you could have a lot of fun with that. Again, a great thing about, you know, role-playing games is that you can pretty much turn your story into any kind of genre. So yes, I think yes, a Star Trek horror, that'd be quite cool. We got our Voth. And then exploring Borg space. Again, additional encounter seeds give you inspiration for adventures. Setting up a Borg campaign. Assimilating supporting cast. Because that's the thing, isn't it? You've got to feel that you are going to be in trouble. You can't have plot armor. Not when you're facing the Borg. It's good that it does consider these aspects. The Borg have got to be terrifying. But of course nobody wants to lose a character that they've spent a long time building up. Maybe you have to create a couple of characters if you're going to have missions that feature with the Borg heavily. Just so that you can actually have throw a red shirt in front of your main character. Various Borg that have unlinked from the collective, and Hugh, of course. Hugh, who featured in The Next Generation. And then we got to see again in Picard Season 1, I think it was. Poor Hugh. The Silver Lake. Assimilated creature, because that's the thing, of course, yes. The Borg don't just necessarily assimilate humanoid species, they assimilate everything. So that opens up a lot of freedom for the Games Master to incorporate creatures that are very, very different. That's fun. And so it does detail here Commander Shelby. She, of course, was the commander who worked alongside Commander Riker during the Locutus incident and the Battle of Wolf 359. And then, of course, the Borg Queen. I am the Borg. And that is it. So we do conclude with the inner pages, as I said before. So these are the Homebound Path, sections 4 and 5. And 6 and 7. So again, you can essentially work out all of the episodes from the major points that they highlight. Finally concluding with the Borg Transwarp Hub and getting back home. So there we go. That is a brief first look of Star Trek Adventures Delta Quadrant Sourcebook. I like it. I think this has more in terms of putting together adventures that for individual adventures, not necessarily a massive campaign. I think this is a really good resource. Of course, as we said numerous times, if you want to include the Borg, this is your go-to book. But I think that the exploration of the Delta Quadrant goes back to the ideas of everything is new. It is being discovered for the first time. And so crews that do find themselves stranded in the Delta Quadrant really are on the final frontier. And I think that would add a lot. And of course, the book does detail many creative ways of being able to get your crew to this quadrant, even if typically travel would not be possible. And also opportunities to bring them back again, so they're not going to necessarily be marooned there. The journey of the Voyager is the one that's well documented, but other crews possibly have been to the Delta Quadrant. Right, there we go. I'm glad you enjoyed Roger. So tomorrow evening, we are going to be doing a first look of Star Trek Adventures 2nd edition core rulebook. This has just launched. I believe it launched at Gen Con at the beginning of the month, and copies are starting to become available now-ish. So we'll be taking a look through, seeing some of the differences that have occurred between edition 1 and 2. And we'll also be taking a look at the Gamemasters toolkit that is available. So these are the first 2 releases for the 2nd edition. So that's going to be happening tomorrow from 7 o'clock, usual time. As I did say at the start of the show, I am running a giveaway for one lucky viewer to win a copy of the Star Trek Adventures 2nd edition core rulebook as a PDF. The link to the giveaway is in the video description just below. Go and click on that link and enter. Winner will be chosen on Monday and will be contacted to get their details. And of course, please do like and subscribe to the video. It all helps the channel, is very much appreciated. Right, I think that pretty much brings us to an end. So thank you, Roger, thank you, Em, for joining. Thanks for your questions. That was great. Hope to see you both tomorrow. But until then, bye for now.